The Miami Dolphins did some business with Minkah Fitzpatrick over the weekend, and we got an update on Kader Kohou this morning. All of that and more here today on Locked On Dolphins.
You are Locked On Dolphins, your daily Miami Dolphins podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Miami, welcome to another episode of Locked On Dolphins. It is your team every day here on the Locked On Network. I'm your host, Kyle Krabs, a lifelong Miami Dolphins fan, host of Locked On Dolphins, co-host of Locked On NFL Scouting, author of Touchdown Miami on Substack, and NFL staff writer for A to Z Sports. Want to give a special welcome and shout out to our everydayers because it is your team every day. We don't just say it, we live it. Here on the Locked On Network. Today's episode of Locked On Dolphins is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off of your first purchase. Today on the show, I have some thoughts on the pros and cons of the Minkah Fitzpatrick contract adjustment that happened yesterday, including how Zach Sieler should feel about it and whether or not it's a continuation of some of the poor judgment that Dolphins have shown at times with managing contracts. We get an update from Mike McDaniel this morning in regards to the status of Kader Kohou, and want to get a little bit into some of the notes from practice, which is currently happening. I obviously am not there. Spoiler alert. I didn't bring my whole home office studio down for my trip to training camp. So I am back. So I do not have eyes in practice. And one thing that's important for me is to give you guys authentic reactions of things that I feel like I can provide insight and value to. So if we see a play in practice that's posted from the team or whatnot, we'll react to it, right? But I can't in good faith sit here and talk about winners and losers from today's practice, which sounds very red zone and special teams heavy based on those on the beat who are still doing a great job and down there and giving you guys updates. And I'm staying connected to those who have eyes and Twitter fingers that I trust as far as what's going on. But we were blessed with some business over the weekend, which gives us a nice foundation to start the week. And then as things unfold throughout the course of the day today, if we have more news, we'll react to more news. 'Tis the season, right? We're back to football season. So Minkah Fitzpatrick got a contract adjustment on Sunday, and it was announced on Saturday that he had changed representation to Drew Rosenhaus to try to get a contract adjustment or extension done with the Dolphins. I say he had a contract adjustment because it is important to note there are no new years of salaried play put on Minkah Fitzpatrick. He's still under contract just like he was before in 2025 and 2026, which is what the Dolphins absorbed from the Steelers with his pre-existing contract. Minkah Fitzpatrick did not get any new money added either. The total that it was 15.5 and then like 17.6. It's now 17.5 and 15.6 as far as 25 versus 26 compensation. The total value and the total years of the contract have not changed. And from that perspective, this is not same old Dolphins. This is not, you brought somebody else out from outside and you gave him a big old lump of cash and a big old commitment. Because there's no guaranteed money for Minkah Fitzpatrick after this season, and he was going to be here this year, so he was going to get paid the salary that I get anyway. It's a $2 million compromise. It's a, hey, you're scheduled to make 15.5 and then 17.6. Why don't we give you 17.5 and then give you 15.6 next year? And that is the foundation for a healthy working relationship in which the Dolphins very much have with Drew Rosenhaus and now have with Minkah Fitzpatrick. I believe Minkah Fitzpatrick now scheduled to speak today. But it was never a question of Minkah doesn't want to play here. And I would not be surprised if Minkah doesn't come out here in the next, before I even finish the program and talk about, I don't want to talk to you guys, and then create a distraction in trying to get this achieved, and got it achieved in a compromise, which, yes, Minkah gets more cash this year, and he gets the vast majority of his cash up front. It's a $16.245 million signing bonus, and then he's on the salary for minimum salary. So the win for Minkah is he does get $2 more million here and now this year, with still, via Drew Rosenhausen reporting, having the aspiration and objective to still acquire a long-term contract extension. But if I were the Dolphins, my messaging would be, I need a little sweat equity here. And you were great last week in practice, and we love seeing that interception on Saturday, but showing up and being a good soldier for the first week of practice in training camp, whilst wanting a new contract, that's not sweat equity, right? Like, you got to come in here and play at a high level. So for the Dolphins, the wins that they gave Minkah was, you do get a little bit more incrementally, $2 million more dollars, although we're not giving you new commitments. We're just rearranging the stacks of cash in the Monopoly on your Monopoly bank, right? Like, you have a pre-existing amount of money, and you can get it in ones, you can get it in tens, you can get it in 20s and fives and hundreds, however you want it. At the end of the day, the amount of money you have is still the amount of money that you have. And I personally, and I know not everybody agrees, but that's fine, I personally think that in and of itself, that's a win for the Dolphins. But Minkah gets more this year, and he gets it paid up front. Those are the wins for him, while looking to prove himself and then get the long-term contract extension. Now, the Dolphins are going to save $11 million in cap space. That's another obvious win for Miami out of this. So it's $11 million in cap savings, which they needed. They were right up against it, and they'd signed Daniel Brunskill, and they'd signed Jack Jones, and Mike Hilton. They formalized this morning and released Nate Noel. You're going to need $5 million or so for practice squad, and then you need some operating budget throughout the course of the season. So barring injuries, I wouldn't be surprised if they're done at this stage. And I can't complain. You signed 2 corners, and you signed a quality depth offensive lineman with positional versatility that bumps Liam Eichenberg further down the depth chart. Like, those were, for me, the two big things that I was would like to see. And I thought they'd only sign 1 corner. I didn't think they'd sign Jack Jones and Mike Hilton. I think both of those guys, it's thumbs up for me as far as the moves that you made to get better in the third week in July. Tip the cap. I think they did a good job in that regard. But I wouldn't be surprised if they're done, barring injury. So $11 million in savings, and the ways that they achieve that, we'll get into that a little bit next here on the program, because I think it probably has some foreshadowing for the likelihood of potentially getting a contract extension done, presumably after 2025, although never say never, with Minkah Fitzpatrick. That's next here on Locked on Dolphins, so make sure you guys stick with us. Today's episode of Locked on Dolphins is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. Fantasy football is back. Fire up the group chat, get your draft board ready, and buckle up for a season filled with breakouts, busts, and all of the overreactions that we all live for. And it's all going down on Yahoo Fantasy. This year, Locked on Dolphins is playing Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too, whether you're a first-timer or a veteran making your 1 millionth league. To celebrate 28 years of fantasy greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days, giving you more ways to play, more ways to draft, and more ways to win. And it all begins on August 4th. Stay tuned and get started by creating or joining a Yahoo Fantasy Football League at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. That's yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL, and make this fantasy season the best one yet. I do feel like I need to take an obligatory check of the timeline to make sure there's nothing monumental happening. Okay, I don't think I've missed any catastrophic news that I would need to react to, like Mike Hilton signing with the Dolphins on Saturday when I sat down and do the Saturday show. So the Dolphins achieve $11 million in cap savings by putting 3 void years on the back end of the 2 years that they had on his contract. So they prorated out the $16.245 million signing bonus across 5 seasons. And then he has a minimum salary. So it went from a $15.5 million cap charge to, and that's the amount is the equal for cash to cap, up to $17.5 million in cash. $1.255 million of it is a minimum salary. He'll get paid week by week. cumulative up to $1.225 million. And then the remainder of it is a check that you get, and that is spread out in equal installments every year against the salary cap for 25, 26, 27, 28, and 29. Not a math guy, but I can count to 5. And that's like $3.429 million per, or $3.249 million per season, approximately. Not a math guy, though. So that's how they get $11 million in cap savings. That is a win, but the fact that they've attached 3 prorated years of like $3.2 million into future years, if he's off the team, whatever year is the first year he's off the team, you take all of that just like you would any dead cap charge. But if you sign him to an extension, that money does not accelerate as dead cap all in 1 year. You can continue to keep it spaced out. So if he played hypothetically 25 and 26, and then he leaves in free agency after 2026, the Dolphins would have a 9.7, which is 3.249 times 3. And I'm using rounder numbers here. $9.7 million dead cap charge in 2026, which is the remainder of the cash that he was paid this year with that signing bonus prorated out and spread out to help give the Dolphins savings this year. It's not necessarily robbing Peter to pay Paul because their cash spend is way down. I think for some, this is probably a big part of the surprise that they played ball with Minkah was they did give a bigger cash commitment than what they were on the books for, when a large part of this offseason has been about the cash budget and bringing your future debts back down and scaling a little bit more so it's a little closer to even. But they did give an extra $2 million from what was in 2026 and moved it up. And then they spread it out. And that's how they get their operating cap. But the fact that, if you sign him to an extension, instead of a $9.7 million dead cap charge in 2027, it could be $3.249 million in 2027, plus whatever compensation he gets and however you choose to bookkeep it from a cap perspective. And then another $3.249 in 2028, plus whatever compensation you got from when you gave him a signing bonus when he signed his new extension, plus whatever his compensation is that year, and so on and so forth. And it snowballs, right? And that's why you can cyclically do this for a while. And then eventually you kind of need to throw your hands up and say, hey, maybe the cash spend needs to come back down for you. But I think the fact that they did void his contract out for maximum savings instead of just splitting it and saying, hey, we'll take $6 million in saving. Hey, we're going to take 11. I think that bodes well for Minkah to, if he plays remotely close to, I think, what he's capable of playing, I do think that puts him in position to reap the benefits and get the longer term extension that he's looking for from the Dolphins. But I like the fact that they didn't sign themselves up for any new years of salary. They didn't sign themselves up for any new financial commitments, and they did not give away any future year guarantees. Those are all changes from what happened with either and Jalen Ramsey and Tyreek Hill. Jalen Ramsey got new years, new guarantees, and new future guarantees. So new years, new money, and new guarantees. Jalen Ramsey got all 3. Tyreek Hill did not get new years, but he got new money and he got future guarantees. And those went nuclear on you last year. So it is, to some degree, applying some of the lessons. But the thing that some people take exception to is that this got done before Zach Sieler. And here's what I could tell you about this. They're working on it. I know for a fact they're working on it. Okay. So they are actively working to try to get a contract extension done with Zach Sieler. But this is the kind of commitment that is going to require new years and new money and new guarantees. And that makes it significantly more complicated than giving you 100 out of my Monopoly stack and asking for 20s back with an extra 20 as a loan. It's complicated. There's layers to it. And Zach, I think, deserves all the credit in the world for how he has approached this process. And he sounded pretty confident last week when I was there and talked to the media about the confidence that he has, that the respect that he knows he's earned is going to be coming to him. And the production that he has speaks for itself, and not just the production. And that's why I was glad to ask him about the plays in which he's making impact, that he's not getting the production, because his tape is littered with it. And that's what makes him one of the most underrated players in football. Still, despite 2 double-digit sack seasons. Usually you just follow the sacks and the respect comes. And I think tape heads and film junkies and Dolphins fans all respect Zach Sieler to the umpteenth degree, but your casual fan probably still doesn't have the first idea of how good Zach Sieler is, because he was a 7th-round draft choice out of Ferris State who was cut from Baltimore and went through waivers, and he played in Miami, and Miami only really got relevant on the national stage 2 years ago. And he missed the second Buffalo game last year due to some freak injury where he injured his eye. And that was probably like the last high-profile game that everybody gave a rip about last year for the Dolphins, despite the fact that they were 2-6. And he played alongside Christian Wilkins and Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips. Those guys are all first-round picks the year before in 23 when he had his first double-digit sack season. And I'm not saying any of this to dismiss Zach, because Zach is the straw that stirs the drink. But when you have a player that's that important, you're probably talking annual average salary of $22, $23+ million per season. It does make it significantly more challenging to get that stuff lined up. But especially the fact that Zach is represented by Drew Rosenhaus, who also now represents Minkah Fitzpatrick, with that business dealing that they were able to get done. Zach's in on the loop on what's going on with his situation, and I'm sure Drew, knowing how both of those dynamics are playing out, is keeping Zach where he needs to know what's going on towards getting his own progress done. And he wasn't blindsided by Minkah getting business done and hearing he got a contract agreement done, even though the contract didn't give any of the things that were the things that Minkah stated outright he was looking, or he didn't state, but through Drew Rosenhaus on the reporting was stated he wants a he wants a contract extension and stability. And he got it for this year, but none of those other concessions were made. So to me, it's a little different. And then I also know that they're working on it. Now, if you get to the start of the regular season and we put our hands up and we say, hey, we're going to wait till after the year. We got you under contract for 2026. If I was Zach, I'd be pissed then. I would be. I feel pretty good it won't get to that. But if it does, if I was Zach, I'd be pissed. So we'll see what comes of it. And the Dolphins obviously have a little bit more wiggle room if it's going to be break even from a cap space perspective, or maybe you lose incremental amounts because of a large signing bonus or the amount of years on the contract or whatever that looks like. Dolphins working on it. We get an update from Mike McDaniel on Kader Kohou as I'm sitting here watching somebody violating the fan policy and posting a deep shot to Tyreek Hill up the far sideline for a long touchdown from practice today. Got an update on Kader Kohou. We're going to get into that next here, Locked On Dolphins. Make sure you guys stick with us. Well, we've all been there, logging on early, waiting for concert tickets to go on sale, only to have something go wrong with your internet. You lose your spot on the show you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of trying to get tickets. And that's where Game Time comes in. Game Time makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever before. Prices actually drop the closer you get to showtime, and can save you up to 60% off with their killer last-minute deals. So if you're tired of endless scrolling, trying to find the best deal, use Game Time's zone deals. They pick the best seats in the best section for you, and they offer you things like panoramic seat views so you know what kind of sight lines you're getting, and all-in pricing, so there's no surprise fees when you put the tickets into your cart. So take the guesswork out of buying concert tickets with show tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms to apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets with lowest prices, guaranteed. So good news, maybe bad news, maybe with Kader Kohou. Mike McDaniel said his evaluation is going day to day. And that he alluded to there being some swelling in the knee, I do know that there was reports of things from Cam Wolf from NFL Network that Kader was seen kind of walking, maybe a little bit of a limp in his gait, but nothing serious and no visible signs of corrective apparatus was attached to his leg. The day that he got injured on Saturday, Mike McDaniel said they were dealing with some swelling in the knee. The tests are ongoing. They are day to day with the evaluation, which I think is a very important distinguishment versus when Mike says day to day with the injury, you're probably going to be back sooner rather than later. But when you're day to day with the evaluation, kind of saying we don't quite know yet. I'm a kinesiology major, which is exercise science. So I have some background and based off knee stability tests and some imaging, I am assuming that means that the doomsday scenarios are off the table. I mean, you're at this point 48 hours removed. I am tentatively optimistic that your worst case scenarios are off the table. But that doesn't mean it couldn't be a minor ligament tear or sprain that might be a couple weeks. It might be a couple months. Like it could be a lot of things. But what we know right now is Mike McDaniel was non-committal to, we don't know exactly what's going on. There's some swelling. He's in good spirits. And then obviously he's going to be continuing to get tests over the next couple of days as they figure out exactly what is going on with Kader Kohou and the knee injury that he suffered on Saturday on a one-on-one rep against Tyreek Hill, which looked like he kind of stepped awkwardly in the trail position, and he was out over top of his toes a little bit, and Tyreek breaks. And as Kader puts his foot in the ground, he was overextended a little bit. It's kind of an awkward play, but he's playing in phase, trying to play main coverage for Tyreek. So touch and go, wait and see. I'm cautiously optimistic that the worst case scenarios are off the table, but you never know, right? Like I don't want to come on here and say, "Oh, okay, don't worry about Kader." I don't know where it's at. But I can at least roll with it and stay patient, knowing that the Dolphins made some infusions to the cornerback room over the last 72 hours with Jack Jones and Kader Kohou and with Mike Hilton. And kind of frankly, they're fortunate they got out in front of some of these because you're starting to see some emergence of injuries elsewhere across the league. Arizona just lost their second significant corner contributor. It was Sean Murphy-Bunting in the spring, and then it was Starling Thomas V over the weekend. That's 1,500 snaps out of the Cardinals secondary gone. Right? And they got some young guys, and they obviously drafted Will Johnson. But you don't want to be sitting here waiting, wishing, hoping they sign a couple of players for insurance, and then a bunch of players go down across the league, and then those players get eager, and the demand goes back up, and you're on the outside looking in. The timing could be much worse in that regard, but we are still waiting to ensure that the Kader Kohou, potentially Mike Hilton, Jack Jones combination of corners is a combination that we'll see sooner rather than later. We're still waiting to see on that front. So I believe practice is just about coming to a wrap. We're getting ready to go to media availabilities. If for the media that is there, I do not believe I saw anything about players getting pulled off the field from an injury perspective, so nothing to react to in that front, which I'm thankful for, and I'll knock on wood in case there's a couple minutes left to practice. But that's going to do it for me here today on Locked On Dolphins. It is your team every day. Appreciate you guys, as always, for checking out the show. We get any news this afternoon, we got you covered. We'll be here. Keep it locked in. Locked On Dolphins. Talk to y'all again soon.